Okay, so in this video on menopause, I'm going to cover the importance of staying in the moment, being present, releasing emotions, and also some recent synchronicities and discoveries about diet changes. Um, so let's start with the diet piece. Um, First of all, for those of you who understand what synchronicities are, I had a cool synchronicity around this. And here's how it went. I was driving in my car and was drawn to look at the speedometer, the mileage odometer, that's the word. Um, and looked down and I was like, I don't know what caused me, my intuition caused me to look down at the odometer and notice the numbers 111717. And I thought, interesting. Well, in angel number terms, 111 can be very significant. 717 was new for me, so I thought, well, I'll look it up later. I was working and running an errand for someone, and I'll look at it later. And then I kind of forgot about it. So I get home and I end up doing some exploring on watching videos, as is my fun for the evening. I like to research all things science and spiritual, and yeah. So I was doing some of that, and I watched this video about this woman who's describing how she became a breatharian, which is a person who does not take food at all. They survive on breath alone. And yes, I know it sounds like craziness, but there's actually even been NASA studies done on this, so it is legit. Um, so she is sharing her a little bit about her methodology, and she says, for people who decide that that's something they really would like to do, don't just dive in head first. Um, get yourself used to the idea of removing yourself from the emotional component as well as the mental chatter. And also then, of course, getting used to just eating less and building your body up for optimal conditions. And that's where I'm going to dive in with the 717. So she says there's a method you can use that she called 717, which is, or 717, which is 7 hours of eating, 17 hours of fasting. And this, what it causes your body to do is to think, first of all, oh my goodness, I'm having to prepare for like starvation mode. Okay, so your survival mechanisms start to kick in. And the result of that is a process your cells have called autophagy, which is basically cell death. And the reason why that's a good thing is because your body will tell your cells, any of them that are struggling, they're diseased in some kind of way or defective or old or whatever, get rid of those ones, because we're gearing up for some major survival here, right? And we want only the strong ones. So it's a cleansing, okay? So it's a reset. It's like a major detox situation. Important to note, it's any detox situation, you want to make sure that you're getting plenty of nutrition and also water or hydration. Okay, so she's explaining this, and I'm going 717. Well, that's interesting. So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I don't know about becoming a breatharian. Haven't given that much thought, but for right now, I know that I'm going to do this, and have already started doing this intermittent fasting. So today's day 2. I already have noticed decrease in hot flashes. but it's been some rocky parts to it as well. Also, in addition, she mentions going with a vegan diet. And I, out of curiosity, decided, okay, I'm going to look into what research there is on veganism and menopause. And I had already had some knowledge on how veganism, and she alluded to this study that I had learned about through my master's program on nutrition, how veganism is actually one of the most anti-inflammatory diets, which tracks, and it helps prevent a whole lot of diseases. So if you look at menopause in terms of it's a result of inflammation, then reducing inflammation is going to be key. And I'm not recommending that everybody jump onto the vegan diet train, but anti-inflammatory most definitely. So I look into the correlation between veganism and menopause symptoms. And I so far I've found one study, and it was very promising in the results, reducing hot flashes by as much as 96% in the participants. It was a small study, and it was a low fat diet. So then I got curious, what do they mean by low fat? Because, in our American culture, we've often demonized fat in the diet, but it absolutely serves a purpose. So I was looking into what do they mean by low fat, and I noticed that they said, and this tracks as well from my other studies, that um, if the gut, okay, so in this study, the gut analysis that they did, they noticed different strains in the bacteria were either decreasing or increasing according to what would make sense with becoming less inflamed. And they noted the fact that in lost my thought. There's a product that's created by the gut bacteria called advanced glycation products, AGE for short. And these AGEs are detrimental to your well-being and can influence the levels of inflammation. And they said that people who were more likely to have hyperglycemia, or another way of saying that would be pre-diabetic or high blood sugar levels, are more likely to have the AGEs in their system. And the results of this diet was that people were losing weight, and their gut bacteria was balancing, and their inflammation was balancing, and therefore they had less hot flashes, among other things, night sweats as well. I didn't read all the different symptoms, but those are the two that stood out. So then, how does this tie in with the emotional bit that she mentioned, and that I have realized as well? And I'll share a little bit of my own experience with that. So when we are in a state of heightened emotions, or we're not releasing heightened emotions, we're resisting them, stuffing them down, and that doesn't mean go out and start railing on people, but allow yourself to sit with the feeling and then let it go. Because otherwise, what happens is your cortisol levels increase. When your cortisol levels increase, your blood sugar levels increase. Your cortisol helps balance your blood sugar. So high cortisol can result in high blood sugar. High blood sugar damages the balance of your gut microbiome, and also you're back to a state of inflammation because the cortisol levels are up. So this is just a fancy way of explaining stress. So stress is really created by three things, really two things, but outer influences like the food that you take in, which I just described, and inner thoughts that lead to particular feelings. And then also feelings that are sitting unresolved in your body. And yes, that's legit too. Look up a book called The Body Keeps Score or The Biology of Belief. Both of them, I've read one of the two, and both I've heard very good things about. Um, so releasing these emotions as they happen, in other words, being present with the body and letting them go. Okay, so I promised I would share one example of how that this took place for me. Several months ago, probably almost a year ago now, I was experiencing some extreme shifts, mood swings, and I was sitting in a meeting, a Zoom meeting. We'll call it a meditation meeting, and one of these waves came over me, and I was just bursting to cry. So I went off camera, and I eventually decided I'm just going to leave the meditation. And I started crying and had been resisting that. Um, and instead of judging the crying and being like, oh my God, this is never going to end, and I feel terrible, and all the thoughts, building up the feelings, I just watched the tears flow. And I share this in another video. It ended up being a very profound experience because I sat with it and I was present instead of saying, "Oh, this is terrible," and having all these thoughts about it. I just let it go, and I felt so much better afterwards. And it wasn't like my whole body was fixed at that point, but compared to where I had been earlier, prior to fighting the crying, I felt a ton better. So staying present and not allowing your mental chatter to influence what's going on with you at that moment, instead of like putting the blame on something outside of you. Oh, this thing is upsetting to me, or just allow the feeling to take place without resisting it. Those two things alone will make a huge difference in your menopause symptoms. I can tell you one last story before I end the video here. I noticed when I was in the perimenopause phase of things that if I had a hot flash and I had thoughts like, oh my God, I'm having a hot flash, this is terrible, then the hot flash was way worse because now I'm adding more stress to the situation where my body was already inflamed and now I'm fueling it, like throwing gasoline on a fire. Literally. If you've had hot flashes, you know what I'm talking about. So, the more you can stay in a state of calm and the more you can reduce any kind of stress, both from your food intake and also your mental intake and any emotions that are already caught up in there, the better you'll be. And your mind absolutely plays a part in your body's health. And if you don't believe me, go Google placebo effect and notice that even pharmaceutical companies are steering their guidelines towards people who are not likely to have a placebo effect when they're in the study because they know how much it impacts the outcome. So recognize the power of your mind and choose to use it for your good. Okay, well, thank you for listening. Reach out if you have questions, if you'd like to work together and get more specific on helping you through this process. I help women gain more energy, less stress, more balanced moods, so you can focus all of that energy on creating your dream life instead of fighting with garbage. And honestly, I know most women are capable and willing of just diving in and doing the research themselves because we're problem solvers. And we're used to doing that kind of stuff. But the piece that I offer in addition, besides a wealth of knowledge and experience, is the accountability. So reach out if any of this intrigues you. I would love to help you out. We can have a free chat to discuss. Have a great day.